There we go. All right, we are officially live. Well, hello to all you Patriots out there in podcast land, and welcome to episode 324 of Canadian Patriot Podcast, the number one podcast in Canada, recorded November 22nd, 2021. I am Gavin. I will be your Andrew once again this evening. With me, I have Jason and Ian. If you guys want to read your parts.
Jason.
Oh, sorry.
No worries. You're still new.
Hi.
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. My name's Jason, and we don't go into drinking yet, do we? Or
No. I'll ask
Okay.
you. Don't worry.
all right. My name's Jason, and you're joining the Patriot Podcast.
We'd love to hear your feedback about the show. Please visit CanadianPatriotPodcast.com/feedback or email us at feedback@CanadianPatriotPodcast.com. A version of the show is available on Stitcher and iTunes.
That and we need your help to support Canadian Patriot Podcast. Visit patreon.com/CPP and become a Patreon. You can get a better quality version of the show for just $1 an episode. Show you're not a communist. Buy a CPP t-shirt for just $24.99 plus shipping and theft. Visit CanadianPatriotPodcast.com on our homepage and follow the link on the right.
All right, time to shamelessly shill for Pierre. We're doing a pre-order of the hoodies with Pierre of Off the Wall Customizing. You can email them at offthewallcustomizing@gmail.com and tell them you want a CPP sweater to stay comfy during the winter. The price tag is $65 plus a $15 shipping. The pre-order closes December 1st. You can get a Canadian Patriot Podcast or Ragnarok Tactical hoodie in any color you want, as long as it's black. Kind of going to look like this, but in the black background.
Yeah. That and our favorite segment of the show, what we call plausible deniability, also known as what are we drinking? Ian, what are you drinking?
Well, tonight it's a little bit cool and rainy out, so I thought I'd just drink some hot coffee with 40 Creek Nanaimo Bar flavored whiskey cream.
There you go. Very appropriate. Jason, yourself?
I'm drinking a local beer out of Winnipeg called 1919. It's a Belgian Pale.
Nice. Is it like a full auto 1919 or just?
No, they say it's a Belgian, but it's got almost like a honey flavor to it there. A little bit of history of that. Apparently, the brewery is located not too far away from where the strike of 1919 started.
There you go. Reminding people of some things aside from the hoodies. We're running a land nav class for those of you in the southwestern Ontario area. December 4th and 5th, come on down to Mississauga. Cost is $130. Come learn some fun stuff that may become relevant at some point in the future. There's also the Patriot Challenge. We're asking you to do 5 things every day. Exercise for at least 45 minutes. Practice a skill for at least 10 minutes. Read a book for at least 15 minutes. Drink at least 2 liters of water. And complete 1 task that will improve your life. Get the templates from our website and post them on the social lists of medias. Section 74 challenges are also ongoing. The GoFundMe link is there. Send the money. Fighting the government in court is not cheap. You can also get involved by sending an email to s70process@gmail.com. The news. So I guess there's been some weather out in BC lately.
I hadn't noticed.
So I guess the extreme weather, which started on November 14th, affected broad swaths of southern British Columbia and forced roughly 17,000 people from their homes. Nearly 1,000 properties in the Sumas Prairie area. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. My BC is not as fluent as it used to be. They were under an evacuation order on Tuesday when severe weekend rainstorm pushed up water levels in the area, causing disastrous flooding and devastating damage. More than 180 rescues were completed Tuesday and early Wednesday as trapped residents were stranded on their flooded properties. Residents in the area of both Abbotsford and Chilliwack were encouraged by what officials called the imminent failing of the Barrowtown pump station, which as of Tuesday night was the only thing keeping excess water flow from the Fraser River from entering the flooded area.
So to back it up the extreme weather. So in certain areas, we actually had up to, believe it or not, a foot of water in just a little over a day. So you could imagine like the actual downpours that were going on, right? Like, it was just insane. Not so much where I was, like I'm just on the island just north of Nanaimo, but Yeah, it was ridiculous. Like, I've never seen anything quite like it, to the point where they were having flights just canceling just due to the severe rain because the visibility was so low and everything else. But the Sumas Prairie actually was a lake back in the 1920s, and so they pumped it dry, kind of like Holland style, to open it up to farming. And in the interim, of course, people built on what's basically a floodplain below sea level, and now it's over 50% of the poultry and dairy production for BC, and a bunch of other like important agriculture actions or activities are going on there. So once again, it just became a lake. So you're kind of fighting Mother Nature there. So when the Fraser River broke its banks, they just refilled the lake. And so that Barrowtown pump station was in the middle of this area. And that was the only thing keeping it dry no matter what. So if the power ever goes out for an extended period, that lake would just naturally form again because of the actual groundwater.
Well, that and like it's a lake. I mean, it's a lake for a reason, right? Either
Yeah.
there's groundwater that comes up, or it's
Rivers
a low
coming in.
spot and everything just kind of gravity and all of that, right? It just sort of slides into the lake.
Yeah, and so they had a canal system set up, and that Barrowtown would pump into the canal and then keep the lake drained. You know what I mean? For the last 100 years or so. And I guess between the rainfall and the imminent failure of the pump station, which is like 4 massive pumps, they were worried that all these houses were going to be inundated. And a lot of them did get it, but I think they saved the pumping station by piling up sandbags and pumping out the pumping station. And then, yeah, so it kept it going. I guess it's still
Is that
flooded.
like when
but-
you have to bail out your bailing bucket? Is that how that works?
Pretty much, yeah. It was
Yeah.
insane. Like just some of the pictures. Like I had a couple of buddies get some aerial photography, like of the area, and it's just like crazy. Anyway, on that
Yeah.
note too, is that I guess what else did I say? Yeah, this is the first time in I think the whole time people have been there that we've had no highway access to the Lower Mainland. Right? I think they opened
Well,
up.
yeah, you guys, like some of them just got washed out absolutely complete, like not just during the flooding, but like the road has got a giant section that is gone.
Yeah, so east of Hope, there's one highway that splits into 3 highways, and right as before, of course, it splits into the 3 is where they've got issues, and then there's also the Trans Canada further up has got issues, and then the north end by Whistler, the ski hills, the only other way out of the Lower Mainland, and that highway closed down for a while too. But I think that one's reopened, and it's only like single lane each way, and small vehicles like Ford Transit van only. So I don't know how they're going to keep the Lower Mainland supplied by ground anytime soon.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So by late Sunday, more than 500 Canadian Armed Forces members were on the ground in BC assisting in the flood. Yes, troops spent days evacuating stranded motorists, conducting damage assessments, rescuing livestock, protecting critical infrastructure, and preparing for more expected rainfall. Yeah, some of the photos I saw of guys using like Sea-Doos to pull cattle out and stuff like that were just, I mean, amazing that people are risking their lives like that, but also, just heartbreaking because like you know that not all of those animals, and animals are way better than people, didn't make it.
Yeah, especially like those chicken batteries where they have like 50,000 chickens in a building or something, and it's in that floodplain. Like, yeah, like clearly there was
Yeah.
just like there's probably a lot of culling either ahead of time or by nature going
Yeah.
on there. But they had seen the cows getting pulled out. They were just like they're up to their neck in water. You can see they were freaking the hell out because they're imminent drowning. Which when you think about,
they're not really known for being good swimmers. Yeah.
yeah, but only that, but they got rescued to what end? The inevitability of the cow anyway. But
Well, I mean,
yeah.
at least they get eaten that way, and
yeah,
somebody enjoys it.
yeah.
There's a higher purpose when it goes that way. Maybe
Yeah.
not for them, but a couple articles all relating to this. So British Columbia braces for more extreme weather, possible flooding on North Coast. So a parade of storms headed for the southwest British Columbia could be worsened flooded and mudslide conditions within the week, according to the meteorologist responsible for warning preparedness and here we go. Here's Pierre. Within the week, according to the meteorologist responsible for warning preparedness at Environment and Climate Change Canada, the first storm system expected to arrive Thursday won't bring rains as heavy as those that triggered the widespread destruction last week. However, the precipitation will be significant enough to exacerbate the vulnerabilities on the ground currently.
Yeah, well, it's currently raining right now. Anyway, it's been kind of going off on and off the last couple of days, but we've had a couple sinkholes pop up on the island in at least 2 places. I think a third. and then which is cutting off problems with the only highway up and down the island too. So
Yeah, I think I saw there's at least 2 or 3 other storms predicted to hit, and then some snow a little bit further north. And basically, you don't want to be out that way right now. And if you do, you should probably have already been listening to Ian's other podcast, Canadian Prepper podcast, to be better prepared for what's going to continue to happen out there.
yeah, because actually it's been interesting. Like for us, life is normal pretty much, but I know a lot of people are freaking the hell out because of limitations on gas and feed and groceries and everything else that's been imposed here locally. So I
Yeah.
think 30 liters per visit at the gas station, 3 bags of feed a day, and something else. They're basically on rations now. So
Oh, I'm sure they pull through because we had not a similar situation, but Churchill, Manitoba, their only lifeline was washed out, but somehow they managed to get supplies up there, whether via barge or aircraft. So with BC being a more developed place, I'm sure there's a plan in place, isn't there? Or
well, like Gillam they had the railway that went through Gillam up to Churchill. That's what you're talking about, right?
yeah, and that got all washed out.
Yeah, so same thing. Our rail lines got washed out too. So and there's even a place where the rail and the high Trans-Canada High cross, and that got washed out. And then so CN had to shut down rail service, and 2 of our pipelines going into the Lower Mainland, one got shut down as well. And so now it's like, even if you order UPS or Canada Post, it has to be airmail only because that's the only way to get stuff in. And I don't know what else they're gonna do. I think they did. We'll talk about it later, but they got the US border as an option. So
Yeah. That note, welcome, Pierre. Let's catch everyone up. What are you drinking this evening, sir?
is he still there?
Oh, did he just freeze? Oh, maybe he froze.
It's very intense stare if he hasn't.
Well. Oh, yeah. No, it looks like he's frozen. All right. We'll get back to him. Abbotsford mayor has extended their local emergency thing to the November 29th, despite the progress restoring the dike and the pump station. He says the he said the monumental efforts to rebuild the dike has reached a point where water from the Sumas River is no longer flowing into what was once the Sumas Lake. The former waterway is the area that was drained for farmland a century ago, but the mayor warned that the barrier must still be raised a further 3 meters and widened to be effective against more water flowing in. They need to get this all done before the next weather system. We're going to get about 80 to 100 millimeters of water over the next 4 days.
And you think they'd have this all figured out because the people that settled in that area are all Dutch. So living below sea level with some dikes all around them, you think they'd be like, have this all covered, but no luck.
Which has a totally different meaning when you live in Toronto.
I guess.
Yeah, but yes, that would be probably why they decided to pump the lake out, because the Dutch are somewhat notorious for doing that. Yes,
The other
as we
thing,
mentioned. Yeah.
The other thing too is that this seems to happen almost every 60 years, according to Climate Environment Canada as well. So you'd think they'd have some kind of safety barriers in place.
Well, yeah, actually, the railway got washed out 60 years ago in almost the exact same place, and they'd actually abandoned it for a while, then rebuilt it like 30 years ago. But
so
I guess they didn't learn their
it happens
lesson,
it happens every 60 years, and it takes about 30 years to forget.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have the same thing near me. So like when Hurricane Hazel, the actual hurricane, not the mare, came through where I am, a bunch of areas that are sort of wetland areas that were like built up as houses got flooded out because there was no vegetation to suck up all the water in the wetland. Weird. So you can still walk through the area, but like it's mostly reclaimed now by like forest and stuff. But there are still housing foundations and swimming pools and stuff there. And there are people that are starting to build there again. And I'm just like, you'll probably be fine, because like, what are the odds of another one coming and hitting like the greater Toronto area? But if and when that does, it's going to flood immediately, because the big river that runs right behind the house, which makes it look so pretty, is going to overflow and flood out your property.
Chances are low, but never zero.
Yeah.
And you know, it's ironic that you mentioned that, because everybody laughed at Duff Roblin when he decided to build a big ditch to bypass Winnipeg there, and along came 97 and pretty much saved the city.
Yeah, no, Duff's Ditch has been quite the lifesaver quite a few times, but of course it's also devastated their farming. I guess the richness of the soil, because that's how the soil used to get all of its minerals was by the flooding, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but I mean, the moral of the story is, when possible, bypass Winnipeg.
well, yeah.
Or at least make sure you have a boat on the back.
Well, some more stories here. The volunteers in Abbotsford helped with cleanup after receding floodwaters leave behind trail of garbage debris. Yes, in the days following the catastrophic flooding in the southern part of BC, including Abbotsford, receding water levels behind a trail of garbage debris in its path. Now community volunteers are gathering to help with the cleanup. I was asked to volunteer to do some of that stuff and do some other stuff, because it seems it's just been a very rough year for BC with the ridiculously hot summers and now the very wet falls. But because I refuse to declare my vaccination status, because it's nobody's business, I'm not allowed to go and help the people in need.
Yeah, but you should just use the argument if it saves just one life, like just
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's actually it's an ongoing thing. Of course, if you would have told these people 4 months ago that, while their houses were on fire, that they're going to be like knee deep in water within 4 months, they would have probably just laughed at you. But it's the way she
Yeah.
goes, right? They've
Yeah.
had quite the year in certain spots.
Yeah, if they were praying for rain, it was a little delayed, and then it added up.
Yeah,
I
you got to
guess
wonder, like, I think a lot of this debris and stuff is coming from, like, they had an RV sales park kind of thing, like where they had a bunch of brand new RVs catch on fire, even though there's water on the ground like a foot deep, and all these RVs like daisy chain and all burned down and stuff. So there's all sorts of collateral damage involved. Plus, I mean, who knows what was in the ditches of the highway and everything else. And so yeah, all the stuff got lifted up and kind of washed around. So
Well, if that's the case, we should have called Kyle Rittenhouse with some buckets and probably saved that too.
Yeah. Yes, we mentioned it earlier. The dike breach has been repaired. Yes, a major breach in the Abbotsford Sumas Dike was successfully repaired this weekend, stopping the flow of water from the Sumas River into the Prairie Lake bottom and alleviating some concerns about the further destruction following last week's record flooding in BC. Combined with the level of the Fraser River falling enough to fully open the floodgates at the city's Barrowstown water pump station, the eastern portion of the waterlogged Sumas Prairie region saw water levels drop by 3 inches in 6 hours on Sunday. So maybe not quite falling as fast as it rose, but it is definitely receding.
well, at least they're winning the battle so far.
Yeah. And some good news, I guess, for BC. A little bit strange, maybe, but good news. So the flood-affected BC residents who must go to the U.S. for essential stuff are exempt from COVID-19 testing and quarantine.
So is it a deadly pandemic or isn't it?
Well, I mean, it's kind of like Schrodinger's pandemic, right?
Yeah. Because I mean, if those measures were in place for a legit disease spreading or disease spread prevention, I guess, they should remain in place. If it was a legit thing, if it's just a political thing, then and they just on a whim can just do away with it because it's convenient because the government can't possibly cover an emergency situation, then clearly it's not necessary.
Oh, and it looks like we've got Pierre back, and it's not frozen this time around.
Or is he?
Maybe his audio is still connecting.
Don't know.
No,
Maybe.
Oh.
There you are.
Maybe.
Yeah, you're good.
Oh, sweet. I had to take
all
my.
right.
I had
So let's catch everyone up. What are you drinking this evening?
took my headphones off, making sure there weren't any helicopters outside. Yes, I'm drinking 40. Yeah, make sure there's no fucking helicopters or flashing lights outside there. We're good, I think.
Awesome. Well, yes, residents in the BC border communities who are in need of gas and other essential goods will be allowed to cross the border to the US and return without requiring a COVID-19 test. So no stick up the nose or quarantining, whether they are vaccinated or not. Bill Blair said this is something that I believe can be accommodated under the exemption regulations that currently exist. But to be very clear, those exemptions do not apply to non-essential travel. It does not apply to people who are required to travel over into the United States in order to access essential goods services, but it does not include family trips, vacations, and other types of tourist activity. So no sneaking across in BC just because you can right now.
So don't wear the Disneyland shirts as you cross over, is what you're saying.
Well, unless that happens to be the only piece of clothing that you managed to pull out of your place.
Again, I think once they do this, they've set a precedent that it's really not that necessary. And
Yeah.
I can somehow tie a super spreader event to people getting their groceries at Bellingham across the border.
Oh, yeah. Then Carla Qualtrough, who was among those speaking in the afternoon news conference, said the federal government is waiving the requirement for application to show a record of employment, recognizing that it may be difficult for many to obtain the proper documentation under the current circumstances. So this is all pertaining to EI, which I don't know why was in this article, but I'm pulling it out because it's kind of interesting anyways. Obviously, it could be very difficult in these times to get that piece of particular document. Good English there. She said, we're looking at the reality of the pandemic benefits and people having exhausted their EI has impacted their availability on ongoing EI support. So if you're out that way and you were off on the dole for the COVIDs and you've used up all your money, just apply anyways, they're saying. They'll give you the money because you need it.
Uh-huh.
And they're not really going to look into it.
Doesn't sound like ripe for abuse at all.
No. So all those people out that way that were getting all the Corona money because they weren't denying anybody can now go and get more. Now, for those people that are absolutely in need, absolutely they should be getting the things they need. I mean, that if we have the system, then it should be used by the people that need the system, especially if they've paid into the system for all these years. But this just sounds like it's going to be a disaster, an economic disaster, not a natural one.
Well, I think that ship's already sailed for the economy.
Yeah, it's just another drop in the bucket. Yeah.
Yes.
But yes, going from BC border crossing and the COVID into COVID news in Ontario. See how I segued that? COVID-19 vaccine appointments for Ontario children aged 5 to 11 to open tomorrow. So yeah.
Yay?
All right, but wasn't there medical research proving that if you're 5 to 11, you're not going to get the COVID? You pretty much have a strong immune system against it.
Well, if you do, you have like a 99.99997% chance of making it through. So
Well, but that's only like 0.0001% more than the average person. But yes, about 1 million children across Ontario qualify for this.
We're going to follow a different science than the
Yeah.
science you're talking about, Jason, just so they can push this mandate forward, right?
Oh, so
We're
it's
going to
not
pick and
making
choose the
sense.
science or the
Well,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Stop
we should
making
all vote
sense.
NDP next time, and just all vote NDP, and fuck it. 2 years from now, we'll do that great reset everybody talks about, and none of this will exist. That's my vote.
yeah, one of the most disturbing things in this particular article was the quote that I saw here by Christine Elliott. We should be able to start getting shots into little arms by about Thursday this week.
yay.
So does this mean like? So I haven't read through this whole article yet, but like, is there going to be like a time frame where like you may have to homeschool your kid if they don't have it?
Currently, no.
Have they announced that yet?
Not yet. But I mean, the problem with a lot of this is Ford says a lot of things and then goes and does the exact opposite. So currently there's no mandatoriness of it. But I'm sure it'll be like everything else. We're like, you don't have to do it. You just won't be able to do all of these things if you don't. And I'm sure at some point school will be added to it. But Ontario is expecting to receive just over 1 million doses of the pediatric Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine from the federal government, which will then be immediately distributed to public health units. As of November 19th, nearly 85% of youth aged 12 to 17 have received a first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine, and more than 80% have received a second.
Interestingly enough, the pediatric Pfizer vaccine, I had to look it up to see what the difference was. They added basically a heart stabilizer to the medication.
Yeah, well, yeah. There's a couple of articles relating to this, and the one I found, it mentioned that there were some differences, but it didn't really spell it out. But that's interesting that's what that is, because it also talks about
pericarditis and myocarditis.
Yeah.
It turns out, that they know there's going to be a stronger reaction in kids, and so they've added a little extra something to stabilize the cardiac effects.
Yeah, that, and like, again, I don't know what's going on. Like, a few of these articles are from the CBC, which, like, okay, terrible news articles to begin with, but like, it's getting weirder and worse, where they start just like throwing in related information, but it's not really. So this one had it in it. The bottom is in a brief email Monday, Ontario Provincial Police also confirmed officers are investigating reports of spam text messages being sent to people who have used the province's booking system for COVID-19 vaccine appointments, or to access their proof of vaccine certificates. As the investigation is ongoing, it would not be appropriate to comment further at this time. But apparently someone has somehow hacked into their information system for the vaccine stuff and is now spamming people with text messages. But, Solicitor General Sylvia Jones says that we have confidence in this booking system right now. But yes, meanwhile, Ontario is reporting 627 additional COVID-19 cases Monday, with 341 cases found in people who were not fully vaccinated or have an unknown vaccinated status. 286 of those are found in people who have both shots. So like roughly half, a little bit less than half, have both shots. And then that other slightly more than half are either not fully vaccinated, not vaccinated at all, or have unknown status.
So it's the kids' fault.
Yeah, clearly. And, clearly the vaccines are working.
Okay.
Get your boosters, everybody. The 7-day average, which smooths out peaks and valleys in the data, now stands at 656, which is the highest it's been since September 23rd. The number of hospitalizations in Ontario rose by 29 to 136 total, though the province cautions that not all hospitals report on weekends, so it's likely an undercounting of the real figure. They also don't mention anything about comorbidity or anything like that, so it's also probably over-reported for hospitalizations, because it's like, yeah, they're in the hospital, but they've also, got cancer, or were in a car accident, or are 500 pounds overweight and diabetic, and.
Interesting you mentioned that, because what was it? It happened in Alberta there, where CBC, I think, reported a child dies of COVID-19, and the parents kind of came up and said, "Whoa, wait a minute, he was at stage 4 brain tumor or something like that."
Yeah, they're also saying that the number of people in the ICU, meanwhile, dropped by 2
I remember.
to 133, with 78 of those people you can use ventilators to breathe. Newly reported deaths, 1.
So am I the only one that's kind of noticed that there's a
Notice that there's a.
So is it just me, or like, in the peak of like the beginning of cold weather, where the potential flu or people just getting the sniffles that, they're ramping up the data saying like, look, are we still using the test that can't tell the difference between COVID and the flu?
Correct.
Or are we
Absolutely.
using a different test now?
No, we're still using the same thing we've always been using. That's been debunked
Okay.
several times. Yeah. So yeah, newly reported deaths. So we've got one new COVID death, pushing the official toll to 9,968, or approximately 0.07, and I rounded up. So 0.07% of the Ontario population has died with COVID in some shape or form. Most of those are comorbidities. Tests in the previous 24 hours, 19,552 with a 3.4% positive rate. So like 664 cases out of that. There are currently 5,597 active cases across the province, or 0.04% of the population. 6,488 doses were administered by public health units on Sunday. And approximately 86% of the population has now had 2 shots. Yet somehow, with 86% of the population, including in that like 85 or whatever it was % of children aged 12 and up. So it's basically like kids and the like handful of people that just don't want to get it or can't get it. Yet still we're having these weird outbreaks right around flu time.
It's all their fault.
Yeah. I definitely blame the children.
But I thought all this was going to disappear once we got to, was it 80%
Herd immunity,
people
man.
with at least in Ontario, right?
I was told by
double
Dougie Ford
dose?
specifically that 70% was the magic number, and after that, our problems would be over.
That's weird. It's almost like he's full of shit.
Didn't you say that 14 days ago?
Oh, I think we're today 600 and something in 14 days to flatten the curve too. But I mean, if you want to talk about complete bullshit.
It's a little sarcasm there.
Well, then just a quick shout out to all the people in the chat. And if you haven't already gone and watched the video that Darren posted of him, trying beaver, you should totally go do that. It's excellent. Some more information about the children's COVID-19 vaccine that's now approved in Canada. What do we know about it? So children between the ages of, not a whole lot, but between 5 and 11, they will get a smaller dose than older kids and adults. So Pfizer was the first company to seek the Health Canada's approval for the pediatric COVID-19 vaccine, and they made the submission on October 18th. So just over a month later, it's now good to go, apparently. The pediatric version of the vaccine is for kids aged 5 to 11. Those 12 and older get the adult one. Even though they're not adults and their bodies are still developing, they get the adult one. The pediatric formulation will be given in a smaller dose, 10 micrograms instead of the 30 micrograms used for 12-year-olds and up. The vials of the pediatric version have orange caps, so healthcare workers can easily tell the difference between the adult and child versions. The adult ones have purple caps, in case anyone's interested. They also say that the children's version of the vaccine was, and this is in quotes, slightly different than the adult one, but that it contained the same mRNA and works the same way. Like the adult one, kids will get 2 doses of the vaccine. Some of the interesting things, though, where this is where the science doesn't kind of match up. Although the manufacturer's instructions say that the 2 doses are to be given 21 days apart, the National Advisory Committee on Immunization recommends a longer gap of at least 8 weeks. They also recommend longer spacing between doses for the adult version of the vaccine as well. That's because there's evidence that a longer interval between doses generates a more robust immune response. The longer spacing might also help to further decrease the risk of one's rare side effect, myocarditis, inflammation of the heart muscle, that has appeared occasionally in adolescents and young adults.
And sports players and TV stars stuff.
Yeah. But like, and this is where like, okay, so how is it that the people that manufacture something aren't the experts on the thing that they've manufactured, and there are people that are contradicting them?
Well, because they've never had a successful mRNA vaccine before this.
Well, yeah. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, like, question everything, absolutely. But I just find it a little strange that, like, here you have the people that literally invented the thing, and you've already got people that are telling them that they're doing it wrong. Which, don't get me wrong, I think that Pfizer is doing it wrong, and you should not be giving this to kids, especially that young. But I just find it weird. But everyone's telling you to trust the science, and now you've got the people that made it, and then some other body that's supposed to be, you know, the immunization specialists, and they're already arguing, and this thing hasn't even been out for a day yet because you can't even get it until tomorrow.
The thing is, historically speaking, though, is that most vaccines go to a 3 to 5 year study period in human beings. How they're rushing this and getting it done, I don't know. But if COVID's part of the cold and flu family, I can see they'd already have some kind of model to base it off of. But still, to push out the child vaccine, was it Israel first reported that their youth were getting heart problems from the COVID vaccinations? Obviously, it hadn't been tested thoroughly enough.
Yeah. This whole thing is ridiculous. Like, another article here with the same thing with kids, where the doctors say that the kids' COVID-19 vaccine is a booster for mental health. So apparently a lot of kids are asking, am I going to get sick? Am I going to transmit this to my family members? One mother, Diana Grimaldos, keeps getting the same questions from her kids. Is the virus gone? Has the virus gone away? Her 7-year-old daughter, Catalina, has always been an anxious child, but it got much worse during the pandemic. She worries, said Grimaldos, who lives in Toronto. Catalina's anxiety was especially high during lockdown, although seeing her parents get their COVID-19 vaccines helped them. Along with going back to school in person, she's still very fearful, her mother said. So no wonder kids are freaking out. Like, the media and the parents and everyone is telling them that this thing is like going to kill you and going to kill everyone, and you can't hang out with your friends and this and that. So yeah, of course they're freaking out, and of course they want to go get the thing. Like, you've conditioned them to feel this way.
Well, the media pushing the fear porn like they have, I think they've just created like
Oh,
a
yeah.
mass psychosis event among the entire population, and the kids
Yeah.
are feeding off of it too. And because
Yeah.
they usually assume their parents can't be wrong. If their parents are losing their shit, well, then clearly the parents are gonna, or the kids are gonna be worried too. So,
Well, you've
hardly a
got
shock.
friggin' Big Bird getting his and everything else. So like, yes, all of their adult figures, their cartoon heroes and everything else, and the people they watch on the media are all going and doing it and telling them just how scary this whole thing is. But yes,
It's like,
yeah,
it cycles back to our original point too. Like, I mean, this generation that's coming up is so fearful of climate change. People are actually getting clinically diagnosed with anxiety because of it. Same thing with this COVID issue. The only question I have is, while we institute lockdowns, really, when you look at Sweden or Mexico, which didn't have lockdowns, they had the same rate of transmission. So what gives?
Oh, Gibraltar had 97% or 100% vaccination, 2.7 doses per person. Runaway COVID cases now.
But see, the problem is, again, we're using logic
Yeah.
to try and make sense of government mandates or government regulations or recommendations, even at this point, right? So yeah, we're trying to use logic. We got to use non-logic and twist the narrative to make it work for what, we the people want.
Yeah. But the meteoric rise in mental health issues among children throughout the pandemic is all too familiar for many parents. Backed up by study after study and reflected in the practices of healthcare providers across Canada, the best medicine for many children, pediatrics experts say, is to restore normalcy in their lives while staying safe from COVID-19 infection. And I would agree with that. Although I think if they get it, it won't be that bad. Just like getting a cold, you should always just try to stay away from it and not get the cold. But the pandemic's effect on kids extends beyond the threat of COVID-19 making them sick, said Dr. Edsel Martinez, a pediatrician in Winnipeg and member of the Canadian Pediatric Society's Public Advisory Committee. The public health measures that had to be taken to save the lives have led to isolation, economic insecurity, and parental stress, which are all terrible for mental health. We've seen an increase in all sorts of mental health issues, including anxiety, depression, eating disorder, substance use, and abuse. Children in general are resilient. For many, a return to regular activities, including school, birthday parties, sleepovers, and visits with grandparents will do wonders. All those things are extremely important for mental health. This is where I disagree. The vaccine is the way that we can get there. I agree. We need normalcy. The kids especially need normalcy.
Yeah, but if both your parents and both your grandparents have this vaccine, I mean, wouldn't the 9-year-olds be perfectly okay to go visit both people or all four parties to hang out if everybody except for a child has this vaccine? Oh yeah, I forgot. Even if you have the vaccine, they're stating you can still get the COVID. So kind of defeats the purpose of a vaccine, especially a mandated one, in my opinion. But
yeah,
I think from what I understand, once you're vaccinated, it means that you can you become a carrier of the COVIDs, not get sick from the COVID.
Yeah.
Well, except unless you're a senator.
Yeah, or except for those like 280 something people that are double vaxxed and tested positive. Other than those people, you can't get it. Yes, I think Darren once again with the win here.
If we were to,
you know what is terrible for mental health? Liberal ideology. I think he nailed it with that one.
Who said that one there?
That's Darren once again.
Right on.
nice. But I mean, like, I don't disagree. Like, I have a daughter, only child. It's been hard. We try and make it as normal as possible with our close group of friends. She's still at home for school and everything. It kind of worked out for us, but I mean, at the same time, like, if it's not so much a vaccine as I see it, as much as like, your flu shot every year. They give you the flu shot, you kind of feel crappy a little bit, and you're less likely to get like a severe case of the flu, right? You might still get the sniffles, but like you'll still be able to work. So for some people, they do it just so like, they don't have to take a bunch of time off of work. But it just, I don't know. I feel we should rally up all those lab rats and teach them to hold little signs that say humans took our job. Put them all over.
I like it.
All over Ottawa, all over.
There we go. When Health Canada and the National Advisory Committee on Immunization decide whether or not to approve a vaccine, the key questions they must answer are whether the vaccine is safe and effective and whether the benefits outweigh any risks. In case of COVID-19, mental health has to be part of that discussion, said Dr. Caroline. I'm not even going to try that last name. A pediatric infectious disease specialist and medical microbiologist at something in Montreal. What you have to look at is the burden of illness, and the burden of illness includes not only the medical complications, but also all the cross-collateral damage that occurs. So, I mean, yes and no. Their responsibility is to decide whether a vaccine is good. collateral damage that's caused here is all done by the government. The government is the one that imposed all of the mental health causing things, not the virus. So really, the government is the virus.
I can understand it in my opinion, because I was a former CBRN instructor. When you're dealing with biologicals like COVID, so to speak, if it's something unknown, and I place myself, if I was the government in charge, yes, I would lock down right away. I would shut all ports entry in until I get more information, and then let science take over. However, you just can't let the doctors run the show. You have to talk to the economists. You have to talk to other things, and you have to formulate some kind of safety plan. It seemed like with the U.S. and especially with this government in Canada, that they just we're listening to the doctors, and what they say is law.
Well, I think also if you're going to perform something called a lockdown, it has to be a true lockdown, not a lockdown unless it's politically not expedient. In which case, like, you still have to shut down all flights, even if they're from China, because even though if you're worried about being called racist, and you still have to shut down, illegal border crossings, so to speak, and everything else.
Or people that just really, really need to go get some gas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have to shut down liquor stores and cannabis stores and everything else, but they couldn't do that because of politics, right? So if they're going to lock it down, they should have done it properly until they figured things out, but they didn't.
No, and I think they need to just get rid of this bloody government, I think, is the biggest thing that's going to help improve everyone's mental health. Because, like, they're the ones that cause the problem. And yeah, I agree. Like, at first, I think we were all on the, like, holy crap, this thing is crazy. And, like, yeah, absolutely take precautions, because, like, people in China are being, like, welded into the rooms, like, and then, it comes out and, like, oh, that's it. I still stand by the fact that far more people have been harmed and died as a result of the lockdowns and all of the restrictions placed on them than have died from the virus itself, even if you include, like, comorbidity stuff, would be my guess.
Well, I try to watch CPAC a lot too, and Michelle Rumpel Gardner had argued the case with then Right Honorable Patty Hayju, saying, "Listen, COVID is only 0.1% according to the Department of Health of Alberta," and then Miss Hayju there turns around and says, "Oh, that's conspiracy theory, or you're sowing out. That's either you're a racist or a conspiracy theorist." That was the whole debate in that parliament. Actually, it's probably every debate in that parliament, but
yeah, which is weird
it's
that
when
no one calls the guy that did brownface racist.
I think conspiracy theory should be renamed Spoiler Alert Guy.
I like that one. That's a good one.
Yeah, because you know what's coming.
Yeah. Certainly not vaccine Oh,
wait a minute. Yeah, no travel papers. No.
Yeah. Well, speaking about shitty government, Parliament returns today with a familiar seat map, but a new set of challenges, or the same old set of challenges, it seems, because they're still going on about this damn COVID thing.
And there's the seat map is short one senator too.
Yeah, but opposition parties are squabbling over vaccine mandates, hybrid model for the House of Commons. The House of Commons will reconvene today after a hiatus of nearly 5 months. I mean, the government that governs least governs best, but somehow these guys still manage to screw that up. But a period punctuated by an election campaign that returned a seat map that looks very much like the one from the last session of Parliament. The first order of business today is electing a speaker to preside over the chamber's proceedings. Government House Leader Mark Holland told CBC News that after that vote, the next priorities are reconstituting the hybrid model that allows MPs to dial in from outside Ottawa and enforcing a new vaccine mandate for parliamentarians. The vaccine mandate is contentious already after weeks of non-answers and threats of a challenge to the new vaccination rules. Conservative leader Erin O'Toole confirmed to Radio Canada over the weekend that all Conservative MPs are now either vaccinated or have secured a medical exemption to the requirement. O'Toole refused to say just how many of his caucus colleagues have been able to bypass the vaccine. I love how the word bypass, vaccine mandate, it's almost like they're in the pockets of the Liberal government, by claiming an exemption. According to the Board of Internal Economic, or the Internal Economy, the committee of MPs that essentially governs the House, an MP can be exempted if they have proof of medical contradiction to full vaccination. All of the MPs will be there, O'Toole said in French. For me, it's not appropriate to speak about the specific health issues of another MP. I mean, I agree with him. We shouldn't be talking about anybody's health things unless they themselves choose to talk about it. That's just kind of, you know, it's not polite. Just don't do it. Talk about other people's shit. That's none of one else's business. Although I think, I mean, O'Toole kind of cucked a little on this, like, and I'm sure that, like, well, I fully support the MPs going and getting their doctors to just write them notes to say that they can't get the thing. If they could do it, we could do it. But it seems, you know, incredibly difficult in Ontario to do that.
As we know, the charter only applies to government employees, Gavin.
Yes, because they are actually employed by the government. And apparently we work for them now. I don't know how that works, but yeah, no, I think this is not, it's like, I think O'Toole should have just told them to get stuffed and stood his ground a little bit more. But, you know, as lately he seems to like to flip flop and cuck and bend over and just take it. But,
well, during the English language debates, O'Toole had the prime opportunity for gun owners, as an example, as Trudeau was yelling at him, "You want assault rifles in the street?" He could have turned around and said, "Hey, listen, I'm not reducing minimum sentences or mandatory sentences to accommodate gun crimes," like he was. I mean, that was an opportunity that was missed.
Yeah, I think he should have said, "Yes, I absolutely want assault rifles in the streets, but not in the way that you think." But you know, it's also why I'm not running for prime minister. Apparently, Holland is also insisting on a hybrid parliament where some MPs are physically present in the Commons while others speak and vote remotely. When the House was dissolved before the September election, the last hybrid agreement ended. Holland wants the dual format to continue until at least June of 2022. It's absolutely imperative we continue with this and the flexibility it provides, he said. I don't want to be coming back in March, relitigating all of this, wasting precious House time. He said, so O'Toole then said, where did I? Oh, no, sorry. Holland still said that it would be unconscionable for the Conservatives to endorse a plan that allows all MPs to fly in and congregate in a relatively confined space, sometimes for hours on end. It's fine for a local restaurant, but imagine a restaurant where you have patrons coming from every corner of the country, he said. It's very different circumstances, and it's just logical that we follow the good advice of public health. O'Toole has balked at this restoring the hybrid model, calling it a cynical attempt by the government to duck accountability and undermine the work of the opposition parties.
You can always blame internet connection problems when somebody starts making a good point or two.
Yeah.
Or a power outage.
Yeah. Or the power outage, yeah.
Yeah. But you know what? There's a loophole around that. We can have Mr. O'Toole there say we're talking about climate policy, and then everybody can come in and join together.
If they come in private jets.
Yeah. I mean, you got to do that for COVID safety, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's so ridiculous. So if they're vaccinated or exempt, what's to stop these people from just traveling anywhere around the country anyways? And like the jackass Trudeau can take like his giant bus and travel across the country, visiting all these restaurants and union gigs and be inside of a bar near the airport with more people than he's currently allowed and all of those things. And that's all totally okay to get reelected. But the politicians themselves can't get together and do their thing. Like maybe tell them like, okay, you can be in this room, but like just like jury duty, sequester them. Like, you all get to stay at the hotel that's immediately adjacent to the apartment buildings. It's a really nice one, but you can't fucking leave there unless it's to come and talk to us in here. And then you got to go straight back to the hotel, and we're going to do like the room service deal like they did if you're in the quarantine hotel, where they just leave the food at the door.
If it saves just one life.
Yeah. Right, like, you know that, like, if they can go remotely, these jackasses are going to be traveling all over the country to go on vacation and do all of the things because they can do it from anywhere.
Well, they're having problems now with doctors. A lot of doctors aren't going back to work because they've worked remotely over the pandemic, and they say, "Oh, why should I go back to work? I'll just continue doing it remotely."
Yeah, and that thing is fucking retarded. But yeah, screw all of it.
So just to highlight it at the end, I put an article in as well. So despite being fully vaccinated, double jabbed, Parliament lost a senator this week to COVID. She, long battled COVID, I guess, and still managed to die. But of course, they always say it could have been a lot worse if you weren't double jabbed. Well, I don't know how it could be any worse than that. Since she died.
Was that the same one that was reported as having an autoimmune deficiency as well?
Yeah, can you name me an autoimmune condition that affects only the lungs?
I was about to say standing next to any Liberal MP.
Yeah, no, it's funny how they always had an excuse handy, but I'm like, I can't think of one, honestly. Like, autoimmune conditions usually affect the whole body, and like whether if it's Crohn's or something like that, so you could kind of call it an autoimmune condition of the intestines or something, but I can't think of one that's actually like sarcoidosis or whatever. But I mean, that's not really an autoimmune condition. So, I mean, it seems to be like she was fully jabbed, she got COVID anyways and still died. But
I was just trying to figure out what kind of senator it is, and then there's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau lauded her as a dedicated public servant and a champion for minority language communities. So I can tell what side she was on.
Yeah. So anyways,
the undeclared side, clearly.
Just goes to show you that double jab doesn't mean much.
No, but I mean, at least like this is the only way to get senators out of there. So
yeah.
Not to make light of somebody dying. That's not what we do on this show. Much.
Often, yeah.
Yeah. Going back to the left coast, the Wet'suwet'en camp leader and some journalists were arrested as a RCMP enforced pipeline injunction in northern BC. So 29 total have been arrested over 2 days of police action. 15 people, including a key leader in the fight against the Coastal GasLink pipeline, as well as 2 journalists were arrested Friday as police action continued against opponents of the project being built west of Prince George, BC. The RCMP broke down the door at a distance camp known as Coyote Camp that has occupied a key work site for Coastal GasLink since September 25th. They arrested multiple occupants, including 2 whom police say identified themselves as journalists. Police said upon arrival at the camp Friday, they read a copy of BC Supreme Court injunction notice allowing pipeline construction to move forward and warned those inside to leave multiple times before forcibly entering and making arrests. The Canadian Association of Journalists said those arrested Friday also included photojournalist Amber Bracken, who was on assignment for news outlet The Narwhal, and documentary filmmaker Michael Toledano.
Yeah, so I guess to narrow it or to boil down this whole problem is there's 2 groups in charge of the local native band. There's like the elected chiefs and the hereditary chiefs. The elected chiefs, who represent the people's wishes, have already okayed the pipeline, got their settlement, and got their cash payout and everything else, and decided to let the pipeline go ahead. The hereditary chiefs are opposing it and maybe holding out for more, doing a little bit of a shakedown thing, whatever. And the 2 sides are button heads. But the problem is the hereditary chiefs can't be voted out. So there we go.
Yeah, so the elected council of the Wet'suwet'en First Nations issued a statement Wednesday condemning the ongoing pipeline resistance. A day later, the Union of British Columbia Indian Chiefs released a statement in solidarity with the members of the Wet'suwet'en doing the pipeline demonstration. The Haudenosaunee Chiefs also announced a thing on Friday condemning the police raids.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that won't end anytime soon then.
they have not, nor will they ever support the pipeline, and they declare that the RCMP are not welcome on their territories. And 12 of the hereditary chiefs have signed it.
There was what's his name? Aaron Gunn did an interesting documentary on that portion of it. Apparently, the ones who started basically enforcing the protests didn't even come from that tribe. They were Mohawks from Ontario and paid protesters.
Yep.
Well, if you if you're not in BC where you can get across the border for essential supplies, but you happen to be in Quebec, Roxham Road reopens to asylum seekers after pandemic ban.
So they banned the illegal crossing.
Yeah, back in March of 2020, the illegal border crossings were banned, citing pandemic concerns.
They unbanned the illegal crossing now.
Yeah, the federal government lifted its ban on unauthorized border crossings on Sunday, citing the improving public health situation and the reopening of the land border with the United States. Except that to cross the land border into the United States or out of the United States and into Canada, you need to now be double vaxxed.
Unless you're using Roxham Road.
Yeah, unless you have, obviously, that would be racist and everything to make sure that those people were vaccinated. We can't ask them for any sort of papers, including their passports. So yes, now those crossing at unofficial crossings will once again be allowed to enter the country to claim asylum and remain in Canada. They don't expect large numbers of asylum seekers to cross using Roxham Road, in part because they don't necessarily need to do so at the land border. Crossing through Roxham Road is for the asylum seekers who are waiting in the United States and would like to come here. Otherwise, they arrive by plane. And those that arrive by air can also make an asylum claim once they arrive on Canadian soil. It's not how that works. Apparently there were some people who had been in the US for some time who didn't feel safe anymore. Of course, the political context is quite different now there, which means that we don't expect near the same number. Two of the people on this thing say that the government should still repeal the Safe Third Country Agreement. So for those that don't know what that is, even though we've talked about it, so if you're leaving like a really bad place, so like say you're leaving Cuba and you're in a boat and the boat washes up on America, you can't go through America to claim asylum in Canada. You must claim asylum in the US. Just like if you're managed to take your raft and somehow go really, really far north and land in Canada and want to go into the US, you can't do that either because you have to go into Canada. You have to claim asylum at the first safe country. America is considered a safe country, therefore you have to do that. Plus, we also had some other agreements and stuff like that to stop draft dodgers. But yeah. Apparently, though, if you cross through Roxham Road, none of the rules matter.
With this government, nope. With this government's rules for me, not for thee. So,
yeah.
But I think if this is an international agreement, I think Germany had the same problem during the Syrian civil war there, where refugees would land in, say, Italy. Italy would say, "Well, no, we don't want you." Go to Austria. Austria would say, "Well, we don't want you." So, what's your third country? Germany.
Yeah. But yes, they want to repeal the Safe Third Country Agreement because apparently it forces asylum seekers to use irregular crossings like Roxham Road. Well, yeah, because they can't do it legally, so they have to do it illegally. And technically, like this is our saying here that the asylum seekers who come into Canada from the US are turned away at official ports of entry, but not there. Technically, they're supposed to be turned away there too. That's how that is supposed to work.
Yeah, and there's
Instead, we have people there handing them out bottles of water and not even taking their kiddie porn away from them.
and carrying their luggage for them too.
Yeah. Well, it's heavy.
Yeah.
I mean, that 100-meter stretch from where the cab drops you off at the end of the cul-de-sac on the American side, and you have to cross over to the Canadian side where they probably got an Uber waiting for them.
Yeah.
Clown world, man.
Good thing we voted Liberal.
Yeah, so glad that everyone did that. Although, looking at this next article, I don't know if Conservative would have been any better. 30 Ontario inspectors laid off despite Doug Ford's promise no one will lose jobs. So yes, in more things that Ford promised and then did the exact opposite of, the Ministry of Labor is taking over the College of Trades enforcement duties, but not hiring existing staff, or at least not the inspectors. So more than 30 inspectors who enforce credentials in the skilled trades have received layoff notices as a result of a decision by Doug Ford's government. These layoff notices went out last week to inspectors in the compliance and enforcement section of the Ontario College of Trades, the agency that licenses tradespeople such as electricians, plumbers, auto mechanics, and hairstylists. The Ford government is dissolving the agency, but all of its duties continue. So in true government fashion, they haven't actually got rid of anything. They've just made it somebody else's problem. So like maybe his one cousin is no longer in favor, so now he's passed the buck on to his other cousin. But yes, so the inspection roles are still being shifted to the Ministry of Labor, and its work related to apprenticeships goes to a new body called the Skilled Trades Ontario. So despite the continuation of their duties, and even though most of the original managers and staff get to stay on the provincial payroll, they just shift from one agency to the other, the 30 plus inspectors face being out of work come February. Doug Ford said no one would lose their jobs, said Terry Dorgan, an inspector who has been in the job since 2013. We trusted him.
Well, that was your first mistake, is trusting politicians. But I think while you watch, after they lay these guys off, they'll hire 60 people. So just, because they have to prove once again the government never actually gets smaller. So
yeah, it won't be these 30 people. It'll be 60 different people.
Because they weren't team players, clearly.
Yeah, no. Yeah, no. This is kind of an odd one because, I mean, with all the stuff that Ford's been doing lately, it's all been kind of like looking like an election is coming. And then he goes and does this. It's a little weird.
Yeah, I mean, on the surface, smaller government does look better, but it's not going to be smaller.
Well, I mean, I agree with you, but no, like this isn't the smaller guy. Like all the people that would be in favor of this are basically have no other option to vote in Ontario. Like it's just he's reluctantly our guy. Our option is this, or we vote for accelerationism. Which this is still accelerationism. It's just not accelerating as quickly.
Is that Orville Redenbacher lady still in charge of the Liberals?
I know. I think she gave up the keys to the minivan to somebody else.
Okay.
And went and invested in a solar farm.
Yeah. Yeah. I still think someone should hunt the ivory, but yeah, I don't know. That's everything I got.
Well, I think I'm black-pilled enough for tonight anyway.
Yeah, I'm the same. Yeah, I just book club. Everybody loves book club. November's book. So next Monday, if Andrew finishes it, we'll be talking about a handbook for right-wing youth by Julius Evola. I've read several of his books. I even finished another one today, Metaphysics of War, which was really good and a lot shorter than a handbook for right-wing youth. If Andrew manages to finish it, that will be the book. I'm sure we'll talk about it anyways. One will either be a review of the entire book, or another one will be why Andrew couldn't finish it in a month. December's book, a lot shorter, a lot easier to read because it was written for the Marines. The Small Unit Leader's Guide to Counterinsurgency, the official U.S. Marine Corps manual. And then January's book will be the True North Tradecraft Disaster Preparedness Guide, a primer on urban and suburban disaster preparedness, by our friend Boris that was on the show a couple of weeks ago.
Ooh, I didn't know about that one.
Yeah, it's a short one,
Yes.
but and like for you preppers on the other thing, it's going to be a little maybe basic, but for the vast majority of people in BC right now, this would have been a good one to read, say, like at least a week and a half ago.
Actually, we tried to get Boris on a couple times. We just couldn't seem to make the dates work, and then we kind of lost contact with him. So,
Oh, well, I'll just tell him that he has to be on the show. He's a
Yeah.
friend of mine. Yeah.
no, we'd love to have him on. So,
Yeah, I'll get him on there for you. He does some cool stuff. But no, I think, well, we'll talk about it more in January, but I've said it before, but I think this is a really good book for people that are just like, I have no idea where to start. This is where you start. This will get you going. And then you'll turn into a true autiste like everyone else on the other CPP.
He's worse at.
before you know it, you'll be talking about carbon monoxide detectors and
Yeah,
everything else.
telling dad jokes.
Oh yeah, can't do without dad jokes.
Yeah, and then you'll be doing shows, and then other internet people will rip off your shows constantly.
Yeah,
It's good times, really. Yeah.
Actually, was I can't wait to see Nate's take on our last episode from yesterday. It was pretty good. So
Yeah. So, imitation is the highest form of flattery.
yeah,
That and we'll remind everybody we're on the Discord. Some of us more so than others. Pierre, do you want to shill the sweaters again? Did we lose him? I'll do it for him. You can hit to Off the Wall Customizing on Facebook and Instagram and a bunch of other social media stuff. You can email them offthewallcustomizing@gmail.com. They'll make all kinds of cool sweaters and shirts and stuff for you. Shoot them a message if you want a Ragnarok or a CPP hoodie. They're very comfortable. For those of you that are watching, Ian is modeling one right now. Yours will be a little bit darker.
and actually the sleeves are pretty nice too. I don't know if you can see those or not, but
Oh yeah, they're quite good. Angela practically lives in hers.
oh, very comfortable too.
Yeah, they're unbelievable. Ian, where can people find you when you're not here?
Well, yeah, I suppose they can reach me directly at the island retreat at gmail.com, or you can listen to me talking about preparedness stuff on Canadian Prepper Podcast Sunday evenings at 9 p.m. Eastern on Facebook and the YouTubes.
Jason?
They can pretty much not find me anywhere at the moment, but I'm hoping next year they should be able to reach me at Northwest Adventure.
Excellent. You can find Andrew when he's not here, maybe not right now, but in general, at ragnaroctactical.ca. And if you waited this long, you definitely deserve a discount. So you could use the code Patriot to get the discount, but I would much prefer it if you use the code Gavin10. It's the same discount, but I just get the credit for it when you use that one. So do that. You can also visit us at Canadian Patriot Podcast. Then go visit Prepper Podcast. They're okay too. Send us some feedback at CanadianPatriotPodcast.com. Tell us what books you want us to read. We may or may not read them. Tell us what you think of the show. That, and as usual, apologies to Rod. We couldn't get him on. He's busy dealing with some stuff out in BC, which is understandable.
Well, I think he was actually trying to dry out his house with his little paisley shirts and like kind of wringing them out on the outside and kind of trying to mop up the excess water. And
yeah, and they're not really good at that. Yeah.
no,
Yeah, that, and remember,